Hey, good morning. I answered some questions that came through yesterday, but after thinking about things last night, I wanted to jump on and give maybe a better answer to one of the questions that was submitted. Before I get started, just so you know, I am parked. I am not driving. I'm at the church, but wanted to do this real quick before I forgot. Okay, so the question was, how do I make a move on a girl, and how long do we need to be going out before we make out? Tricky question. It's not clear in God's word. It's not in God's word. It doesn't say you have to be going out for 3 hours or 3 weeks or 3 months or 3 years, or you have to be married before you can make out. That's not in here. But a couple things that are in here, God does say to honor him. And if we're doing that, if we're honoring him and if we're glorifying him, then what does that look like in the physical side of our relationships? So Tim, and as a church, we went through this series a few years ago, the Toxic series, and in that, the unbelief quadrant of our heart, Tim was speaking from Genesis chapter 3, and he said, unbelief is when we add to or discount God's word, and that is when things get messy. When we add rules or laws to God's word and create these things in our minds, or expectations that people put on us or whatever, things can get messy. And that's what happened with Eve. God commanded them not to eat from that one tree. But Eve added, I can't eat from that tree, or I can't touch it. I can't look at it. And things get messy then. When we add to God's word, when I say you can't make out until 3 months or 3 years, things can get messy because that's not in God's word. What is in God's word is he says to honor me. So in your relationships, how are you honoring him? Are you honoring him by waiting to make out? If you know that that's something that you can't handle, your body can't handle that, if you make out, that's going to lead you into sin, that's going to lead you into the temptation of sex, then you probably shouldn't do it. Not probably, you shouldn't do that. It's a tricky line. There's not a very clear answer. I know Pierce is going to be talking about this sexual purity at your guys' next Resonate, so I know he'll have some great insight on some things about that there. But what I want to communicate to you is how are you honoring God? How are you honoring God in your relationship and in the physical side of your relationship? Sex before marriage does not honor him. And so if making out is going to lead you to having sex, then you shouldn't do it. But I do know that God created us to have that physical attraction and desire for the opposite sex, and that is something to be celebrated in due time. And if honoring him in the physical side of your relationship, if that is something that you can handle, if that is honoring him, then that's okay. But if that's going to lead you into falling into that temptation of sex and falling into sin, then you need to know that that's not something that you can handle. And that's where I would encourage you to seek out some wisdom from I'm available. I think I know all of your Resonate leaders are available. They've all been in your shoes. They all of them are married. They know the struggle, and reach out to them, ask them how you can honor God. What does it look like to honor God in the physical side of your relationship? I think it is different for each relationship. It's relationship specific. I can't say across the board, you can't do this, this, and this, because all of us handle things differently, and if we are rooted and firm and know that isn't going to lead us into the temptation of falling into sin, then and we can honor God in that, then it's a different story. So the question to be asking yourself, how do I honor God with this? And go from there. But seek out some wisdom from your Resonate leaders or me.